All right. I think we're going now. Hopefully we got volume. We got, hopefully everything's working right tonight. We're good started. Before I do, I'm going to get the normal disclaimers we normally do out of the way. This is a weekly live broadcast pretty much every Thursday evening, 7 o'clock Central. This is where I'm at. Sometimes things get in the way. I can't make it, but usually I'm here. And I just do my best to respond to all the chats that come in during the live broadcast itself. So if you have a question, a comment, or whatever, just leave it. I do tend to skip over the ones where you're talking to somebody else, which is fine. It doesn't bother me a bit. It's great that we have other people in here where they can answer your questions for you and those kinds of things too. That's all good. I don't mind. I mean, you recommend other YouTube channels, right? Whatever. None of that stuff bothers me a bit. The things that I ask is be polite, be family friendly. Don't be hateful. Don't start cussing. Don't, call anybody names or any of those kinds of things. We'll have to kick you out. But other than that, we can disagree. We can have good friendly debates. All that stuff goes. So let's get into it. There's Scrap 5000 from New York City. Good to see you. And Joy from Western Oregon says, waiting on the rest of my chicks to hatch. 42 in lockdown on Monday. 8 so far when I left earlier. Awesome. Good luck on that hatch. Hopefully it's the start of a really good hatch. It's always hard to wait. You get those first couple that hatch out and then really hard to wait for the rest of them for sure. Mary from Utah, good to see you. Hey, Jesse Mills is here. Good evening. He says, happy birthday a day late, Chris. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Hey, Andy Rabbit's here. Good to see you, Andy Rabbit. We'll wait for a few more people to jump in. Usually everybody's in here and talking away before I ever get started. I'll grab a drink while I'm waiting. Oh, and happy birthday from Andy Rabbit. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, yesterday was my birthday. I don't make a big deal of it. It's just kind of another day. My wife did buy me new boots, though. Check them out. New Red Wing boots to replace my old Red Wing boots. So my old ones were getting pretty old, pretty worn. Need to have the soles replaced. I just haven't done it. She gave me the new ones. Gave them actually a day before my birthday because it was she was off work that day. She's not off work yesterday. So anyway, so she gives me these new boots. I put them on. I'm like, all right, new boots. And she says, do they feel better than your old boots? I said, no. She looked at me kind of confused. It's like, you got to break them in. They're brand new boots. They're not going to feel good for a couple of days. Stills and Squeals says, hello, Chris from West Virginia and happy belated birthday. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. David says, happy birthday. Thank you. Says, how you feeling now? I feel great. Yeah, no problems. Everything seems to be good. I think I'm pretty much over all the recovery I had to do. Hopefully I am anyway. I did get a bag of rabbit feed yesterday, but just to be on the safe side, I didn't use my left hand to carry it. I just tossed it over my shoulder with my right hand. My wife doesn't believe me that I can pick up a 50-pound bag of rabbit feed and empty it into the deal using only one hand. She doesn't believe me. And she wasn't here to see it, but I did. I managed it. But Andy says, nice boots. Yeah, Red Wings, great boots. They are fantastic. A little pricey, but she saved up for a little while, snuck in there on me and got me a new pair. So now I've got 2 pairs. I need to get the other ones resold, but I have a pair to wear while those are off getting fixed. Miss Kitty from Utah says, thanks for all your common sense and happy birthday. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Ben says, hey, from Southeast Idaho, Black Bear Family Farms. Awesome. Says, still cold and snowy. Happy belated birthday. Your area weather looks crazy. Yeah, well, I mean, ours, it's not too bad. We got, right now, it's been a little bit rainy the past couple of days. It wasn't not too bad right here, just kind of off and on. We actually need the rain, so I can't complain about that at all. Supposed to rain again tonight, maybe a little bit of snow coming, but not much. I mean, we're looking at probably less than a half an inch, if any, accumulation at all. Ben says, hey, from Southeast Idaho. I just read that one. Sorry. Go on to the next one. Ian J. Dixon says, hey, Chris, hi from Idaho. Question, is there any chance we could get the light or the $75 we paid in? Oh, you know what? I need to refund that money probably. I keep forgetting about that. I need to do that. I'm going to probably just go ahead and refund all of that because it's not, I don't think it's happening. Thank you for going ahead and paying out. Let me pull that up so I don't forget to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and go in and refund. That was not my intention, but I cannot get them to, I can't get it done for some reason. I've contacted them. They just keep blaming it on delays in getting parts and whatever. I think they're just scamming me. So, not scamming, I shouldn't say, but just for whatever reason, it did not work out. It did not go through. I paid him a pretty decent amount of money. I probably just out of. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go in there and try to get that refunded. Let me see if I can. I probably can't do that while I'm here, and I don't know that I need to, actually. I'll do it later, but I will. I'll go in and refund the money that you paid in on that. I'm sorry about that, too. I should have refunded it a while back. Mary says, happy birthday. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate that. And Marty, hello and happy birthday. Thank you. Appreciate that. Verna says, happy birthday. Hope it was truly blessed. Well, it wasn't bad. It was decent. So thank you. EJ likes my boots, huh? Thank you. And Durney says, I may be giving my birds too much cucumber, lettuce, and greens. What is? And then it stops. I imagine there's more to that. We'll get to here in just a minute. I mean, as long as those should be really a treat, not the main diet. So, don't go overboard with them, of course, but it's not a huge concern. The one thing I would stay away from, though, is iceberg lettuce. If you're feeding them iceberg lettuce, you're feeding them too much of it. Iceberg lettuce, don't feed that to any of your animals. It's pretty much mostly just water. It doesn't have much nutritional value for them. It can lead to them getting diarrhea and all kinds of problems. So you want to stay away from iceberg lettuce. And really a lot of lettuces in general, you kind of want to stay away from a little bit. Iceberg's the big one. You can feed others in moderation, of course. But you don't want to go overboard with the greens. Nikki James says, hey, Chris, happy birthday. Thank you. And then we got Steve from Alabama. Good to see you. Andy Rabbit says, let's see, I hatched out 20 babies, 21 of 30 shipped eggs, made it to lockdown, lost power 2 different times during the lockdown. Once was the day of lockdown for over an hour and a half. I think the hatch went well. Yeah, sounds like it. 20 babies, 21 out of 30 shipped eggs made it to lockdown. So yeah, that's a pretty good hatch. So yeah, congratulations. Well done. And then we got Tony from Toronto here. Good to see you, Tony. And Ian J. Dixon says, we were sure hoping for the light. Thank you for trying. Yeah, I was hoping to be able to get that out too. The prototypes I have worked well. I mean, it was great. It was super convenient. Loved it, but it is what it is. Can't get it done. I'll hit them up one more time, see if there's any updates from them, but I don't expect anything. So I'll get that refund out. All right, where are we at here? I don't know. There was a deleted message. Not sure what that was. Okay. Joy says, why aren't turkey eggs popular? I don't know. Why aren't they? I don't know. I'm not sure why turkey eggs aren't popular. Maybe because turkeys only lay once a year, don't they? They're not prolific layers. So that's not like they're not like chickens where you're going to get an egg a day from your turkeys, I don't think. I don't know. Katrina from Gilroy, California is here. Good to see you, Katrina. Yud says, hey guys, hello to you. Says 2 more days till lockdown for me. Well, good luck with your hatch. I hope it goes well. Let's see. We got Lisa says, happy birthday. Many happy returns. Greetings coming from Jamaica. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us all the way from Jamaica. Where else we got here? Got some people talking to each other. I'll let you guys do that. Andy Rabbit says, it's a good rate for shipping eggs plus the problems I had. It's a good hatch rate for the shipped eggs, especially considering the problems that you had. Yeah, for sure. And, really, it's not that big of a concern when you have like a power, even for an hour and a half, a power outage where your incubator shuts off for an hour and a half. Now, maybe a little more of a concern, right as you go into lockdown. But for the most part, it's not that big of a deal. Those things are fairly well insulated. They're not going to drop temperature that fast. And even if they do drop temperature a little bit, I mean, you got to figure a bird hatching eggs is not going to sit on the eggs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the entire time. They're going to get up and go, have to go get a drink of water, go get something to eat, whatever. There's going to be periods of time. So it's not as big of a concern, I think, as people make it out to be sometimes. But still, good job, good hatch rate nonetheless, especially considering the issues that you did have. Let's see. William says, hey, Chris, did you find out who opened the door as you mentioned on your last video? And then there's a little ghost emoji. No, I didn't figure that out at all. It hasn't happened again, so I've kind of just let it go. Not worried about it too much. Have no idea. It got opened twice somehow, but no idea how. Who knows? Blessed with Pet says, hey, Chris, I'll try to catch the end of it later. Eating with family. Oh, well, go ahead. Yeah, have dinner with your family. Absolutely. That's more important than hanging out with us. But thank you for stopping by and letting us know. Let's see. Stills and Squeals says, Chris, what's a good age to start adding layer feed to jumbo browns? I don't ever add layer feed. I just feed a game bird starter to my birds the entire time. That's what they get all the time is game bird starter. I never switch over to another feed, and it works well for me. You don't have to switch over. If you want to switch to a layer feed, you can definitely do that. I want to say that probably somewhere around 6 weeks is a good time to go ahead and switch over. I think that is the common, like most people when they feed a game bird starter for the first 4 to 6 weeks, and then they switch over to like a layer feed at that point. So that seems to be about the right time. But I just feed them game bird starter. That higher protein has worked well for me. Andy Rabbit says, Taverna says, I got my first eggs from my Celadons today. They're 8 weeks old. Well, that's right on track. So sounds like they're doing well. Taylor says, I'm on day 15 on my first batch of incubating Coturnix. Well, not much longer then. You're going to have, hopefully, a bunch of them hatching out. Should be within the next couple of days. It says, let's see, a question. What kind of feeds do you use for your grow out ruse? Well, I think I just kind of answered that. I feed all my birds game bird starter. It's I like a high protein feed. At 29% is what I'm using right now. 29% protein. And that's what all my birds get. So I feed, it's 29% protein, 1.5% calcium. Worked well for me. All my birds get that from the time they hatch to the time they go in the freezer or whatever. That's what they get. Let's see. Durney says, any mods or improvements planned for your quail cages? I've had mine 2 years and about to refine or refit as I've learned where I went wrong. Well, I don't know what kind of hutches you're using. If you can tell us what you did wrong, that may be helpful. But no, I don't really have anything major planned for my hutches. They worked well. I don't have any issues with it. The only thing that I might change out is I may change out the bottom wire for coated wire because I do believe that probably is a little bit better for them. But other than that, right now I don't have really any issues with legs or feet problems or any of those kinds of things. But I do believe that the coated wire is probably a little bit better for them. But yeah, that's about it. I don't really have any other changes or refinements or anything like that I can think of right offhand. Verna says, I found another hen in the bachelor pad. Uh-oh, that poor hen. That's glad you found it, I guess, because it's probably going to get all beat up if you don't. And now you're getting 4 eggs a day. I don't know how many hens you have, but 4 eggs a day is not bad. Comments have slowed down, so I'm just waiting on more comments to come up. I don't have anything planned out to talk about in these dead air or dead space times because usually we don't have them. You said you found it because it was the only one not bloody. Ooh. That sounds pretty rough, like a rough bachelor pad. Scrap 5000 says, hit the like button, y'all. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We got 16 people hit the like button so far. Katrina wants to know, have you been starting seeds yet? No, not yet. It's still too early. Really the things that I start indoors are pretty much just peppers and tomatoes. Almost everything else I start right in the garden. Sometimes I'll start some summer squash, but even if I do start like zucchini, summer squash, any of those things, they get really big really fast. So I don't start those until just a couple of weeks before I'm going to plant them out. That's about it. I don't really start a whole lot of other things indoors. Everything else just pretty much gets started outside. I have a long enough growing season. But I don't plant out like tomatoes and peppers until usually around Mother's Day. So around May 10th, May 15th, somewhere the second week of May, somewhere right around in there. So I don't start my seeds for those until usually first, second week of March, somewhere right around in there. So I've still got a couple of weeks before I'm going to start them. The problem is I have started them this early before, but the problem, what you'll see on most places that talk about starting seeds, they recommend 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost date. But the problem is when you're starting things like tomatoes and peppers, those are heat-loving plants. Our last frost date, our average, is April 15th. But it's still pretty cold at that time. It's not, I mean, even though we're not getting frost, it's, we're getting nights down in the 40s and, maybe the high 30s. And, that's too cold for tomato plants and pepper plants. So it's really going to be another, 3-4 weeks after that before I can actually plant them out. So that's where I do my 6 to 8 weeks before that. If I start them right now, the problem is they're going to get huge and they're going to have to be repotted several times and probably stunt their growth a little bit because of that. So I wait a little bit. That was kind of a long drawn out answer, but hopefully that kind of makes sense. Let's see. Wade says, so my cage, instead of putting birds, so my cages, instead of putting birds on the ground, I don't know if that's so my cages or that's something else. So HY cages. So maybe you're talking about hanging your cages instead of putting birds on the ground. Interested to figure out why you would want to change that up. I mean, I don't keep my birds on the ground, but I don't know what you maybe ran into the reason why you would want to keep them off the ground. Let's see. Verna says, Chris, I got 2 trays of microgreens of purely mung beans. Going to start some alfalfa tonight. Well, awesome. I've grown microgreens before, but honestly, I don't think they're really worth it. It's just my opinion. They're not that good. And I mean, they're so small. There's so little meat to them that it takes a whole lot of, I mean, it's just, I don't know. To me, it's just not worth the effort, if that makes sense. Taylor Cook says, I just bought 8 hens and a rooster, chicks for, 8 hens and a rooster chicks from Real King tonight. Are we talking quail or chickens? Did you buy chickens maybe? Interesting if they're selling quail there. Andy Rabbit says, let's see, I'm waiting for Chris to show he's starting plants before I do. Yeah, I'll probably do some videos on when I start them. It's been a while since I've done any kind of gardening plant starting videos. So, I don't do a ton of gardening videos, even though I say I help people, start their own vegetable or raise their own vegetables. But to me, gardening is fairly easy. It's really not that difficult. Starting seeds isn't that hard either. Once you know how to do it, it's pretty easy. But I'll do some videos on it when it comes time. Lisa says, waiting on 2 rabbits to kindle. Today is day 31. Well, you should be getting pretty close then. So good luck with that. Hope it goes well. Andy Rabbit says, I looked up the last frost here the other day and it said April 28th or 29th. Yeah, it may have actually changed over the last couple of years because we did get some later winter, a while. But, the last time I looked at it, which has been several years ago, I kind of, for the longest time, it was April 15th. That was the kind of the average last frost date. Scrap 5000 says, we'll see, I've hopefully got 6 white quail hatching in 3 days. The parents were a fluke. The genetics came through after about the 5th generation of browns and yellows. Interesting. So you're kind of hoping maybe for white quail out of these. Well, good luck. I hope that that works out the way you want it. And Vernus posted a picture. Oh, that's right. So and Tear has an aviary set up for the quail. So may check that out. Katrina says he's asking why cages instead of an aviary. Well, that makes sense. And that's, by the way, that's So and Tear's. Katrina is the So and Tear YouTube channel. Okay, so why do I do cages instead of an aviary? Well, there's a couple of reasons for me. One is it's in maybe not, but to me it seems like it's much easier for me to keep them. There's a lot less cleanup. It's kind of self-cleaning because all their droppings just fall through the cages, except for in the sandbox area, which I do have to clean out occasionally, but it's not that bad. Now you could do a deep litter method in an aviary setup if you wanted to. I personally like to be able to have my birds up off the ground. It makes it a little bit easier for me to tend to them. Also, all their eggs are a lot easier to find. I don't have to dig through, litter or anything like that to get to. This is a kind of a lesser concern, and it depends really a lot on, what your area is like, I guess, as to how big of a concern this would be. But my other concerns about aviary settings is twofold. One is protection from predators, because we do get lots of predators around here. Even though I live in town, we get, raccoon and fox and all kinds of things. And in an aviary, it's much harder to keep predators out than it is in a raised up cage. And then parasites too. Whenever your animals are in contact with the ground, they do have a higher chance of contracting parasites. Now, how big of an issue or how big of a concern that is, like I said, that's kind of a minor concern. For me, it's really more of a convenience thing. It's more convenient for me to have my birds in cages up off the ground, as opposed to in an aviary setting and having to clean that out on a fairly regular basis. I know Katrina does aviaries and it works great for her. So it's not, I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong way to do it. That's just the reasons I do it the way I do it. Miss Kitty says, so never use wallow waters for tomatoes. What? I don't know what wallow waters are. Let me do a search real quick. Oh, wallow water tomato protectors, huh? Oh, no, I've never even heard of those. I don't know what those are. You said never use them, though. Did you use them before and maybe had some issues? I'm kind of curious. Let's see. Oh, you're talking. Okay, Verna says they're great for quail and the cuy, the guinea pigs. So you're that's why you're growing the microgreens. Well, that makes sense. It just seems kind of expensive for to use for animal feed. I mean, microgreen seeds aren't super cheap. And but who knows? Maybe not. Maybe the mung beans aren't that expensive. I think if I was going to grow fodder, though, I wouldn't be doing microgreens. I'd probably be doing barley or wheat or something like that. That might be, I don't know, maybe a little bit more bang for your buck. But I may be wrong. Taylor says chickens. Okay, you got chickens from Rural King. That makes sense. I was kind of interested. I was like, they were selling quail there. That'd be kind of cool. Wade says, let's see, why cages instead of putting birds on the ground? Okay, I think I kind of answered that one already. Yeah, her opinion is because everything wants to eat quail. Yeah, they pretty much do. Yeah. Andy Rabbit says, I do cages over the ground for the reason it's hard to bend over. Well, that's a little bit easier too, right? Joy says, do you raise rabbits and birds to save money or just as a hobby? Well, it's a little bit of both. I mean, I get a meat production out of them. It doesn't save a ton of money, but it is a little bit cheaper than buying meat from the stores. Also the health benefit. I mean, you know what you're putting into these birds and rabbits, so you know what you're eating basically. I like that idea as well. I do, in addition to raising rabbits, raising quail, I do usually do a spring run of meat chickens and I hunt. So I deer hunt primarily is the major game that I hunt. And assuming I get a deer, that's between the deer, the rabbits, the chickens, the quail, that's a lot of meat I can put in the freezer that I don't have to buy from a commercially processed, who knows what antibiotics they threw them and all that kind of stuff. So that's a big part of the reason I do it. Christopher Stone says 90 quail eggs in the incubator. It's been a while, so brushed up on your older videos and hoping for a good hatch. Biggest issue I have is it's so dry in my house, having to monitor humidity more than before. Yeah, that's interesting. In the wintertime, it's very dry here too. So I know kind of how that goes. Don't stress too much about humidity. It's not as important as temperature. But, especially when you go into lockdown, it's a little bit more important at that point. But other than that, it's not as big of an issue. But you're right. It is awful dry out. So it's probably a good idea to maybe pay a little more attention to it than you would maybe during summertime when the humidity is up a little bit higher, or at least here it is. It says, would you recommend a Wynola Ranch cage? As far as everything I've seen from them, they look like good cages. I don't have personal experience with them. I believe Verna's got a Wynola Ranch cage, though, I think. And she said, yeah, hers are inside. She prefers the Wynola Ranch cages. They are pretty good. I mean, they're good cages. I've seen them firsthand. Everything looks great on them. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't work really, really well. Now, if you're going to do them outside, like I do mine completely outside, not in an outbuilding or something like that, you may be better off building like a hutch or something like that, because those are stacking cages. They go all the way to the ground, I believe. And they're not really set up for just like sticking outdoors with no protection. But if you're going to put them in an outbuilding or, in a garage or something like inside a barn, something like, they're great. They're fantastic cages. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with them at all. Scrap 5000 says, for people looking to get chucker, I keep learning with them. For example, I learned this week that they are so strong and aggressive they will continuously snap the threads of watering cups. Interesting. Huh. Well, that doesn't sound good. That's Scrap 5000 says, as well as the O-rings of the water nipples. So they just break all that stuff. Huh, that's terrible. So Miss Kitty says, I have used the tomato protectors. So are you saying I shouldn't use them? Are you saying I should use them? I don't know. I remember earlier I thought you said don't use them. Don't ever use them. But I'm not sure why. I don't know what the issue was. What's wrong with them. Katrina says a whole house humidifier will help everyone, people and incubators alike. My winter skin is so much better since I got one. I can imagine. Yeah, I have terrible issues in the wintertime with, just dry. You probably can't see it, but my hands are incredibly dry. It's better this year than most of the time. By this time, I have like big cracks, deep cracks in my thumb if I don't keep lotion on my hands. It's a little bit better this year, and we're also getting towards the end of winter, so it's starting to get a little bit better. Verna says, we got up to 64 degrees here today, Chris, but tomorrow's high will only be 45. Yeah, we're about the same. I don't think it was 65 here today. It was, I don't know, it was pretty warm. I took my jacket off. It wasn't bad. It was pretty nice. But that's what it is this time of year. We get warm days where it gets up in the 60s and maybe for 3 or 4 days, and then the bottom drops out and it gets back down to the 30s. And we get snow, something crazy. Hey, Yusef's here. Good to see you, Yusef. Let's see. Katrina is talking to somebody. Okay. Verna says, I keep the desktop humidifier in my apartment. Yeah, a whole house humidifier would be nice, but they're kind of expensive, I think. Christopher Stone says, I noticed many people still use lamps for brooders. Why not the hover heating plates? Is there a negative to them versus the lamp other than cost? I don't know of any negatives to them. I haven't tried them because they are fairly expensive, and that's been kind of the holdback for me is the price, whereas my lamps work just fine. So I haven't switched over to them, but I may someday. I don't know. Ben says, I use Winola Ranch cages and love them. They're raised off the ground about 2.5 feet for the first tier of the cage. Okay, so they're not all the way to the ground, 2.5 feet up. Biggest issue is water, especially in the winter with freezing temps. Yeah, that's always an issue, of course, but could be worse. The cages themselves are pretty nice, though. I've seen them, and like I said, they look great. All right. Let's see. Durney says, for info, keep my birds in an aviary setting, and they definitely go broody. Heard that question before, and I can confirm it happens. Yeah, I've heard that about them too. That if you want them to go broody, like a more natural setting, like an aviary style setting, is you're gonna have a much more high likelihood of them going broody in there than you would in a hutch style system like what I use. Stills and Squeals says 71 here in Mountain State of West Virginia. 71 sounds pretty nice. Hasn't been that. Well, we got like high 60s the other day. That was pretty nice. Andy Rabbit says, it was nice today. I got a lot done I was wanting to do. Yeah, I worked today, so I didn't get much done. Verna says, I use the brooder plates and not the heating lamps as they are too much of a fire hazard in the apartment. Yeah, there is the fire hazard with the heat lamps, of course. I secure mine to make sure they're not going to fall over or anything. Never, excuse me. Oh, I don't know what came over me there. Yawn all of a sudden. I've never had a problem. I've gotten close once or twice where I didn't have them really well secured. So now I make sure that I keep them secured. Yeah, you're probably definitely safer with heat plates versus a heat lamp. Miss Kitty says, I was just curious if you ever went that way, just a way to start early with tomatoes. Oh, okay. So they're for frost protection then. That's what you're talking about. Okay, I get it. So you fill them with water and it acts like a thermal insulator, basically. That's the whole idea behind them, I guess. That makes sense. No, I have not done that before. What I'm going to do this year, which I've done before, didn't work last year, but it's worked for me before. And I think last year I had other issues going on. I was a little lazy and I didn't. Anyway, regardless, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like a winter sowing, but I'm going to winter sow them directly in the ground. So basically, if you've ever seen winter sowing, most people they'll cut open a milk jug and they'll put dirt in the bottom of it and then put your seed in there and then you tape the milk jug closed and just make sure it keeps a little bit of water in there. And then you set it outside and, as the conditions are right, it just sprouts and grows. It's like a little mini greenhouse. Well, instead of putting dirt in the bottom of it, I just cut a hole in the bottom of the milk jug, staple it down to the ground with a couple of landscape staples, plant the seed right in the bottom and tape the milk jug shut. So it's the same concept, but I just grow it straight in the ground and then it comes up. I'll start it, mid-March, about the time I'm going to start seeds indoors, and I'll start seeds just to have backups in case that doesn't work. But as they start to grow, they grow inside that milk jug. And I got to make sure I don't start them too early. The other time I've done this before and started them a little too early, and they were like coming out the top of the milk jug before it was time to, before it was safe to take the milk jugs off of them. But that's basically it. They grow up in there and you just take the milk jug off whenever it's, your nights are above, 55 degrees on average for tomatoes and peppers. And anyway, it worked great. It worked great. It was fantastic. Super easy way to start them. But I plan on doing that again this year. I just got to collect up some milk jugs. Katrina says, I used brooder plates. They work great. You need to have them low enough for the birds to touch their back to, and they need an ambient temperature of at least 50 degrees to work well. Well, that shouldn't be hard if you're inside, but who knows? Ben says, our high was 21 and a low of -5. Yeah, that's too cold. Christopher Stone says, if you ever get to the heating plate, get the cover for the top. If not, they poop all over it. LOL, and it never comes clean. Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, that's probably a good advice because they are messy for sure. What the heck happened there? I scrolled and I went way too far. I lost track of where I was. Oh no. Where were we? There we go. All right, Chase says, hey, I just wanted to say, love the videos. Thanks for all the info. Well, thank you so much. And you are welcome, by the way. Scrap 5000 says, for more about Chuckar, they're so strong even as juveniles that they knocked off the wood-framed hardware cloth top I had on their brooder, and the heat lamp hit the floor. Luckily, my floor is tiles. Oh, that's scary. But yeah. Yusef says, Mr. Chris, I'm trying to raise wool and meat rabbits. Do you have any tips on raising them on a budget under $70 to $100? And how do I start? Is it better to get a pair or a trio? What's some tips? Oh boy. Okay. Your biggest expense is going to be aside from purchasing the rabbits to begin with, is building hutches or building a cage system for them of some kind. That cages are fairly expensive. Especially if you buy pre-made cages. If you make your own, if you're looking for more than, a couple of cages, it's more economical to make your own. So, as far as whether you should start with a pair or a trio, it's whatever your budget's going to allow. There's no reason you have to start with 3. You can always add another doe later on. So if you're kind of on a tight budget, starting with a doe and a buck, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And especially if you get good pedigree rabbits, then you may be able to sell some of the babies and recoup some of your cost. I don't know if that answers your question. I don't know as far as like good advice on how to raise them on a budget of under $70 to $100. There are ways you can feed your rabbits without feeding them pellets, so you don't have to buy rabbit pellets on a regular basis. Honestly, though, you're going to pay for it you're either going to pay for feed, out of your wallet, or you're going to pay for it with labor. You're going to work to get it. So if you want to raise like fodder for them, grow stuff for them, there's a really good book on that called Beyond the Pellet. That's probably a better resource than I am because I feed all pellets to my rabbits. You don't have to really buy anything special for them. Little bowls for the water is fine. There's not a whole lot to say. It is what it is as far as you got to put the money into the cages. You got to buy the rabbits. And once you have the rabbits and the cages set up, it's not that expensive. It's pretty cheap. I go through a bag of feed. I've got 4 rabbits right now, 4 full-grown silver foxes. And right now I'm going through a bag of feed probably a month and a half, something like that. and a bag of feed cost me about $17, something like that. So, it's really not that expensive to raise them. It's just getting started with it. I don't know that I mean, if you have specific questions, ask away and I'll do my best to answer them for you. But I don't know how to go about it any other than that. Stills and Squeals says, I bought a heating fan I bought a heating fan that hangs instead of a light and has adjustable setting. Works great. Has built-in LED light and not bright for the brooder in my bedroom. This fat boy needs a sleep. Yeah, well, that sounds pretty good. Like, that sounds like you've got a pretty good setup there. So I'm glad that's working well for you. Jupiter says, hey, Chris, congratulations on quitting smoking. That is fantastic. Yeah, thank you very much. It's not something, like I said, kind of ashamed to admit that I was a smoker for years. I don't know. I gave into peer pressure or whatever, started smoking, worst thing I ever did. But I did quit. It's not that actually that hard to quit. So I did manage to quit. Christopher says, do you still use a tarp under your rabbits to collect or divert the urine? Yes, I do. I still have the tarp system set up. As long as they're right by my house, I'm going to have that tarp system set up. I actually have one tarp that's kind of trashed. I need to replace. So I need to pull the cages out and put a new tarp in there, but I haven't done that. RBL Jackson says, good evening. I found a Farm Innovations 4250 incubator for sale for $50 with an egg turner. Picking that up Saturday. Also started our quail cage. Awesome. That sounds like a pretty good deal. $50. Good luck with your hatch. I'm sure it's going to go great. Verna says, I use pellets for my cooey. Okay. For the guinea pigs, they eat pellets. Let's see. Katrina says, beyond the pellet doesn't give very much specific advice. It's pretty much just, yes, you can. I'm wanting to collect a list of plants common in my area and common weedy plants that they can or shouldn't eat. Oh, really? Okay. Well, thank you for your feedback on that, because I've heard, and I actually don't have great experience with it because I haven't read it, but I've heard from other people that it's a great resource for that. So I guess I'm wrong. Maybe it's not a great resource for that. That drives me crazy when somebody writes a book and doesn't give you specifics, writes a book on how to feed your rabbits, but doesn't give you specifics on it. One thing you may want to look at is, there's lots of ways you can feed your rabbits. Look at things that are toxic to them. Might be easier than looking for what they can eat. So you want to stay away from, of course, plants that are toxic. Chances are they're not going to eat it anyway if they're toxic to it. Also know that if you are going to switch your rabbits over from like pellets to fodder and greens and those kinds of things, that you're going to want to do that slowly. You don't want to just take their pellets away and give them greens. Drastic changes in diets can be bad for your rabbits, so you want to make sure that you make a slow transition for that. And you probably don't want to think about the traditional, you don't think about things like lettuce and broccoli and carrots and all those are not the primary diets of rabbits. Those would be like treats and things like that. If you did have to grow like carrots and lettuce and kale and all that kind of stuff for your rabbits, it would get prohibitively expensive pretty quick, because you'd have to grow a ton of that stuff. It'd probably be just as expensive as buying pellets for them. So you're going to be looking at other things. Fodder is a really good option. Things like barley, wheat. Those are the two that come to mind. Those could be their primary diets probably, but you would need other things to go with that, some other supplements on that. But you're going to have to, you're going to have to look that up. It sounds like Katrina's doing some of that work right now, so maybe she'll share that with us when she gets it all figured out. Verna says, to Yusef, grow some hydroponics for your rabbits. I don't know about hydroponics. And Verna says she pays about $23 every 3 months that's for growing guinea pigs, I think. Yeah. I don't know about hydroponics. There's some things you could grow hydroponically. If you're going to do fodder is pretty much hydroponic. It's a little bit, you're only growing, like you're only sprouting it basically. So you're not growing it. It's not like growing a plant to full, flowering potential and all that, where it needs lots of nutrients to grow up that high. That's one thing about fodder, that I guess it is hydroponic in a sense. You're not growing it in soil. But other than that, I don't know that hydroponic is really a great way to go, because if you're going to be growing plants like past their seedling stages, you're going to need to add like fertilizers and things like that to it, and that's where you get wrapped up in money then. And it may be easier to just actually grow them in the ground in most cases, in my opinion, anyway. But who knows? I may be wrong. So Katrina's saying, yeah, about the book. In other words, maybe check it out from the library, but wouldn't waste your money buying it. Yeah, that's probably good advice. Yusuf says, you're strong for that. I know some people in my family who can't quit for years now. Yeah, well, I don't know if I'm strong or not, but either way, it was actually easier than I expected it to be. But thank you for the kind comments. I appreciate it. Andy Rabbit says, if I counted the cost of feed, my hubby would make me get rid of them all. Yeah, I understand that. Katrina says, Chris, video tarp replacement. People will want to see how you do it. It seems simple, but people will enjoy seeing it. Well, maybe I'll do a video on that then. I may get that done this weekend. Who knows? It's pretty simple and straightforward, really. Like you said, just take the rabbits out, take the cages out, take the screws out, put another tarp up, put the screws in. That's about it. But I think I've actually maybe have videoed that before. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it again. Who knows? If people want to see it, I'll do it. RBL Jackson says, I'm going to review your 5-part series on improving the hatch rates tonight. Well, hopefully that helps you out. I probably should redo that series too. That was a long time ago, but nothing's changed. It's still the same information. Verna says to Yusuf, I think that the cuy and the rabbits eat about the same amount each day, about half a cup a day, plus whatever treats you give them. And that's probably pretty close. Yeah. Scrap 5000 says, I don't know how long the heat lamp was on the floor, but there were birds running all around my basement with poop everywhere. So it was it was for a long time. Cleanup was fun. Yeah, I bet. Yeah, that sounds terrible. Sounds like a miserable situation. Yusuf says, does screen time make your eyesight worse, or is it just a myth? Screen time, like staring at the computer screen? Or are you talking about like phone screen time? Maybe. I don't know. My eyes are getting worse, but I'm also almost 50 years old, so I think it's probably to be expected that my eyes are getting worse. I'm sure it does. I'm sure that there is some impact on it. Depends on how much time you spend on it. Verna's saying just use the blue blocking glasses and your eyes will not get as tired. It's more bad. It is no more bad for your eyes than the TV used to be. Well, maybe. I don't know. Yusuf says, if I wanted to, could I replace 70 to 80% of feed as fodder for my rabbits? Yeah, I'm sure you could. Yeah. There's no reason. Yeah, you could definitely stretch out their feed, and probably more like 90% of their feed could be fodder. You got to think about it. Rabbit pellets are primarily alfalfa anyway. Sorry, I just scratched my head and felt like I may have scratched it open. I didn't. So make sure I wasn't bleeding. So yes, you could definitely replace probably 80% of your rabbit's feed with fodder. That would work just fine. Verna says, lettuce and microgreens. You can grow whole green plants. You can use hydroponics. Well, you can, yes, you're right. The problem with that, though, is going to be now, okay, microgreens, when you're saying grow whole plants, you're not growing whole plants when you're growing microgreens. They wouldn't be microgreens if they were whole plants. And that sounds hateful. I don't mean it hateful. Microgreens are small. They're basically, you're just growing them until they get the first set of true leaves on them, and then you're harvesting them. So it's not really growing them to full plant. Same thing with lettuce. If you're growing lettuce and just getting and harvesting the baby lettuce off of it, that's not growing it to a full plant. It will not grow without adding some kind of fertilizer to it. It's not going to grow to a full plant hydroponically. You're going to have to add something to be able to get it to get to that point. But if you're harvesting them as microgreens, absolutely, you can grow those with nothing but water. That would work just fine. But the problem with that is you're not going to get enough from microgreens to it's not. I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. But in my opinion, I don't think economically it's going to be worth trying to raise microgreens to feed rabbits. You're going to have to produce a ton of microgreens. It's going to get pretty expensive pretty fast. I think fodder is probably a better option, which is not that much different than microgreens. It's pretty similar, but I think it is a better option. Yusef says to Vernon says, I'm starting to notice that my eyesight is getting a little worse, so I started to panic a little bit. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, go to the eye doctor. I mean, yeah, but who knows? It's probably not good to sit in front of a screen all the time, for sure. Yeah, Katrina has given Yusuf some advice. Says, I think you could, talking about replacing 80% of their feed with fodder, but the issue is to get all the nutrients they need. So you'd have to figure out what proportion of what plants to feed, plus minerals, as that is, or that are in the pellets. Lisa says, I feed my rabbits both pellets and greens. I live in the tropics, and there are lots of plants available that they'll eat. Yeah, you could definitely just harvest from nature too. What's available? There's lots of things that they can't eat. Andy Rabbit says, go to the Dollar Tree and try on glasses. I don't get eye pain anymore. Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, Yusuf's like, what are you, like 15, 16 years old? I mean, he's too young to have severe eye problems yet. Yeah, blue light glasses may work. May not be a bad idea. Andy says, yes, Chris does have a tarp replacement video, but a new one would be good. Yeah, well, maybe I'll shoot a new video on it. I got to get some stuff done this weekend. That may be one of the things. Maybe it'll be next weekend. I don't know. We'll see. I'll get something done. Taylor says, why do you have a tarp for collection purposes, or for collection of the poop and pee, to make it easier for clean up or just cleanliness? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, they're right up against my house. I don't want all the urine and feces and all that stuff dropping right up against my house. That's one of the reasons. The other one is I use that. I use the manure as fertilizer for my garden. It makes it a lot easier to collect it. So yes, that's the two main reasons. If I had them out there like by the quail hutch, I wouldn't. I'd just let it drop to the ground and I'd shovel it up when I needed it. Katrina says, eyes. I think it's more too much close focus. Naturally walking around, you'll use close and far focus, so there's literally an impact for too much screen time. Could be. Yeah, you may be right on that too. Verna says, I had some roos in the hospital cages. I guess I didn't latch it correctly because when I went to the bathroom, all the birds were heading to the bathroom as well. They were all following you around, huh? Verna says, my pellets are Timothy grass. Well, I guess that's possible. Usually, most rabbit pellets are primarily alfalfa. Scrap 5000 says, wait, are we asking questions about life and mysteries? Because I've often wondered about the sky being blue. Well, you want to know why the sky is blue, huh? Well, I don't know. There's a lot of ways you can answer that. The simplest way is probably because the atmosphere reflects the blue particles of the light, and that's what causes it to look blue, I think. I don't know. That's probably not a really thorough explanation, but that's the best I can do right now, trying to remember high school science class. Yusuf says, I'm on day 14 on incubation. I kind of forgot to deal when it is lockdown, day 14 or 15. Day 15-ish. Yeah, don't stress about it too much. Day 15, go ahead and go into lockdown. You're good. Kitten Son says, sorry if you have talked about this, but people have been talking about feed, egg depletion in chickens. Have quail be affected? My birds don't lay in the winter. Okay, yeah, we talk about that stuff all the time because it's a pretty common thing that comes up, and no need to apologize. That's what we're here for. Okay, so I think there's two things going on here. One is that there was a big controversy about Tractor Supply. Was it Purina feed or Do More feed? I don't remember. One of the feeds at Tractor Supply causing drops in egg production. I don't know if that's true or not. That's kind of the word going around right now. It's kind of the controversy I guess people are looking into. But that's like a specific, that's like a new thing. That's not it's not like years of that's been going on for years or anything like that. That's like a new issue that somebody brought up. As far as feed affecting your birds laying, I mean, it could. It's not likely. The reason your birds aren't laying in the wintertime is because it's wintertime. It's dark. I mean, they don't lay in the wintertime because there's not enough light to get them to lay. They need about 14 to 16 hours a day of light in order to lay on a consistent basis. So if you're not putting an external light like a light out there that comes on at night, whenever the sun starts to go down and stays on for several hours, or comes on early in the morning before the sun's up and stays on for several hours to extend the daylight, you're not going to get eggs in the wintertime. It's going to be, late spring to early summer before they start laying again, whenever the days just get a little bit longer. That's just natural. I mean, all birds are that way. Chickens, quail, ducks, and all of them are that way. So it's pretty common for them to not lay in the wintertime. Hopefully that kind of answers that question for you. Verna says, in my case, Chris, I don't have the ground for the garden, so I have to go hydroponics. I'm growing lettuce and other greens in hydroponics, and the amount of plant food isn't high. Well, no, I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. You're right. There are several ways that you can grow things hydroponically that works pretty well. I've got a couple of arrow gardens. They're pretty nice. And if you're growing lettuce for yourself, cut and come again lettuce is fantastic. You just cut the tops off, you have a salad, and a week later it's grown back. You cut it off, you have another salad. You'll have to start several of them, but to grow hydroponically for fodder for your animals to feed as a primary feed, I don't know that that's going to work too well. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if you've seen my videos on crack key hydroponics, but that's the way to go when it comes. I mean, that's a set it and forget it kind of situation. It works great. Yusef says, yeah, that's true. That's why microgreens are a delicacy and used in luxury restaurants. Yeah, they were kind of all the craze a couple of years ago. I don't know if they ever picked up though. I grew some. I grew a lot of microgreens. They're just not that great, honestly, in my opinion. They're just not worth it to me to grow. I don't know. Andy Rabbit says the sky is blue because of the ocean reflecting on it. Well, why is the ocean blue then? I mean, this is the rabbit hole, right? We can go down. Yusef says, thanks to Verna. So always thanks, Verna. Verna is always a great resource to have. We are lucky to have her here with us. Katrina says, meaning the sky is every color except blue. It's reflecting that color. Fun to think about. Andy Rabbit says, Katrina, that's why my dad told me when I was a kid. Well, I guess he's not wrong. I don't know. Garrett says, just starting quail in December, bought some 6-week-old jumbo browns, love them. Bought some Texas A&M eggs, only got 10 out of the 60. Actual temperature in the incubator was 98. Check temperature at egg level. Yeah, well, that makes sense. You 98 degrees and you had a poor hatch rate, unfortunately. Most of the times your poor hatch rates are related to temperature. You need to bump that up a degree or two, 99.1 degrees if it's a forced air, and you'll get a much better hatch rate. Taylor says, okay, that's a great idea, and it grows big fishing worms. What are we talking about? I don't know what we're talking about. That was a great idea. Yusef says, I'm thinking about have a large dog kennel and no dogs. Maybe I can grab it and put a divider in the middle, attach some feeder waters. Will that work as a rabbit hut? Well, it might. It depends on, you said a large dog kennel and no dog. Okay, I have a large dog kennel and no dogs. Maybe I can grab and put a divider in the middle with some feeder and waters. Will that work for a rabbit hut? It might. The thing you're going to run into, if you're talking about a large dog kennel, you're talking about one with a solid floor in it, I think is what you're talking about. So the problem you're going to run into with that is it's going to get filthy incredibly quick. You're going to be cleaning it out like every single day. You may run into some issues with sore hocks because the rabbit's sitting in their own urine. It really is better to make sure, it's not a big enough area to just leave them with a solid floor, in my opinion. You're going to have to put some kind of bedding in there, and you're going to have to be replacing it fairly regularly. So that's another, it may not be an expense. You might be able to use all kinds of different things as bedding for them. That's something that you can get for free. But that is going to be some work that you're going to have to do. In my opinion, it's better to have them up off the ground in wire cages so that their droppings and urine just fall through, and you don't have to clean all that up every day, because cleaning every day gets old really, really quick. But you could try it out and see how it works for you. I think if it was me, I would encourage you to save up your money until you can build proper cages for them, as opposed to trying to rush something and put them in, something that may not be a proper cage for them, if that makes sense. I've got videos on my very first video ever was how to build a wire rabbit cage. It's not difficult to build. It's going to cost you probably, I haven't priced wire in a while, but I want to say you probably need, for 2 cages, probably you're going to have some way to suspend them or hang them on something as well. But you're probably looking at $60 maybe for the wire and all the stuff you need to be able to build a couple of cages. That would be my guess. Garrett says, second batch is my eggs and got 50% of my eggs. Gonna keep at it. Love them. Thanks, Chris. Well, you're absolutely welcome. Your second batch was your eggs and you got 50% of your eggs. Okay, yeah, 50% is not a bad hatch rate, but tweak that temperature a little bit, get it up closer, like I said, 99.1 degrees, and you'll probably have a much better hatch rate. Hickory's Tiny Farm says, if we're asking questions, I would like to know one of life's mysteries. When are we going to see Chris drink Coke? LOL. And, I'm not against Coke. It's all right. I'm not that picky. If I go to a restaurant and all they have is Coke, I drink it. It's fine. But I typically buy Pepsi when I buy it, so I don't know. But you may see me with a Coke someday. You never know. You may see me with probably not a Dr. Pepper. Maybe. I mean, I'll drink that if that's all that we got, but it's not my favorite. Or a Mountain Dew. I don't care for Mountain Dew. I'm pretty much a caramel-colored, cola-flavored beverage kind of guy. All right. Verna says, Chris, it is TSC Breeder's Choice and another nameless type brand. Okay, those are the feeds that we're talking about. That are the ones in question. All right. What is that? Straight Bray, I think it is, says, hey, Chris, just starting getting a lot more eggs. I just put some in a mason. Thank for the info. Put some what now? I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, I just started getting a lot more eggs. I just put some in a mason. What are you talking about? A mason, like a mason jar? I'm completely lost. I'm sorry. Kitten Son says, thanks, you're welcome. Yusef says, I got kicked out of a chicken group for talking about the TSC feed conspiracy. Oh, that's too bad. I saw your post on the TSC feed conspiracy thing the other day, I think you were asking a question about whether people believed it or not. I think I saw it, but they kicked you out. That's unfortunate. David says, we took 16 1.5-week-old jumbo white wings out to the brooder in our shed today. Still have 27 more in the brooders in the house, but they had outgrown our 2 meager indoor brooders. Well, 1.5 weeks old. Hopefully they do well. They should. Andy says, Yusuf, I've had a few dog crates I used for some rabbits. The wire ones, I turn them upside down and build a roof on the big holes. I use them as tractors for a while. So you like move them around the yard, basically. That's a good idea, actually. The wires on those dog kennels are probably too, like the spacing's too big to like hang them and have the rabbits sit on them, because it would cause problems with their feet. It's not the right kind of wire. But to set it on the ground upside down and move it every day like a track, that's a great idea. That would work great. Lisa says, glasses are available specifically tinted for the screens. I'm 75-year-old. I see okay, so don't worry. I get my eyes checked annually. Keep my eyes them moist and wear the tinted glasses in front of the screen. So that works then. Okay, cool. Karen says, I use white Christmas lights for my quail. Lots of people do. They work great. Verna says, as white light passes through our atmosphere, the air molecules cause it to scatter. The scattering caused by these tiny molecules, known as Rayleigh scattering, increases. As the wavelength of light decreases, violet and blue light have the shortest wavelengths, and red light has the longest. And there's more to it than that, I think. But tell the truth, Verna, you just Googled that, didn't you? Copied and pasted it from Google somewhere, didn't you? I mean, not that you're not smart enough to know that, but that seemed like a very, very textbook answer. But yeah, I think you're on the right track. Andy Rabbit says, my dad never told me why the ocean was blue. I will ask him tomorrow and let y'all know next week. If he says it's because it's reflecting the sky, that's probably what he'll say, huh? Andy Rabbit says, Yusef, I put them up off the ground. Oh, if I put them up off the ground, I put some tiles around the floor for them. Yeah, I put tiles in my rabbit cages too, so they have a way to get off of the wire. And tip on that too, get an extra tile or two, because your bucks especially can be really filthy with their tiles. They'll just like defecate and urinate all over them. When they get dirty, you just pull them out, stick a clean one in there, spray it off with a hose, or I just usually just set it out and let it rain if it's going to rain in the next couple of days, and wash it off. And then by the time he's got the other one filthy, that one's clean and ready to go. So switch them out. Oh, Taylor says fishing worms with the rabbit poop. Okay. Yeah, I guess you could do that. Yusef says, I guess I'll listen to your advice and save up for lumber. Yeah, if you've got a covered area you can put them in, like if you've got an outbuilding or a shed or something like that, you can just hang them from the wall of the shed. That'll work. But I don't know. Lumber's expensive. There's lots of ways you could do it. You can hang them off metal shelves. You can hang them off all kinds of things. Gary says, just wanted to say hi. Been watching for several minutes. As far as the eggs, birds will almost molt. Birds will also molt during winter. Get combined short light, lead to reduced eggs, and then molting. Bingo, no eggs. Yeah, you're right. If the birds are molting or stressed out for some other reason, that's another reason they won't lay. Yusef says, I built my quail hutch like the one that you have, but a budget version. So maybe I'll build something like that for the rabbits. Yeah, there's no reason you can't. It'll work. There's lots of ways you can do it. You don't have to go overboard with all you need for your rabbits. I mean, if you build cages like the ones I have right now, you just need a frame to hang them from. You don't need to wall it in and, do all that. I use tarps for my walls and it works just fine. It's way cheaper than plywood and cutting it to, making a shed basically. RBL Jackson says, ever use the hatching time cage brooders? The stacked cages look nice for a brooder option. I have not used the hatching time cages. I've seen their cages. They look decent, but I haven't used them, so I don't have any advice on them. How are we doing on time? Wow, we're just about out of time here, guys. I'm going to have to wrap this one up pretty quick, but see if I can get a few more things answered. Taylor Cook says, I have a steel garage off of my house and a 4-tier quail cage. I keep a fan on them and a heater. Whatever is needed. I keep the lights on 24/7 for egg laying production. Yeah, I would suggest if you have the ability to get it shut, I think it's better for your animal's health if they have a break from the light from time to time. But, if you don't have the ability to just put it on a timer and you have to go out there and physically turn the lights on and off, maybe it's better to leave it on 24 hours a day. But if you can put it on a timer and have it shut off for at least, 5 or 6 hours a day, that's probably your best bet. Lee says, I'm in Houston. Will quail do okay in an afternoon shade in 100-degree weather? Yeah, they do fine. Believe it or not, it gets hot in places besides Houston. And we are typically well over 100 degrees in the summertime. As long as they're in the shade, they're going to do fine. I mean, they definitely struggle in the heat of summer more than they do in the cold of winter, but they'll do fine. That was my one thing I was always surprised. I lived in Texas, not in Houston, but Nacogdoches, which is not that far from Houston. And, people down there were always surprised that it got hot, in Missouri, like it does in Texas. They'd come out and they'd be like, man, it's hot. I bet you wish you were back in Missouri today. And I'd be like, no, it's hotter there than it is here. And they'd never believe me. I have to pull up the weather and show them, yeah, look. They're like, well, yeah, but you don't have the humidity. Well, it was 80% humidity. They'd be all surprised by that. So Wade says, so that means the sky is green over the Amazon. I guess it would be, wouldn't it? Graced and Grateful says, so glad to catch you live. For years we've watched your channel and appreciated so much that we've learned from you with tending to our beloved cues and buns. Thank you. Well, thank you for the kind comments. I appreciate that. I'm glad you made it to the live as well. It says we have 4 rows of hatching time cages and they are 4 tiers, so they must, I guess you like them. Verna's placed a link to, looks like one of her videos, the Saturday morning at Vay's place. There you go. Check that out. Yeah, random chat today, Katrina. Yeah, I like random chats sometimes. They're fun. Yusef says, I honestly think hatching time cages are a 2 out of 10. Almost drowned all my quail. Ooh, sorry to hear that. We're going to have to dive into that another time, though, because I'm about out of time. 2 more comments here. I think I can get them answered before I wrap up. Says, we love hatching time very much. Now we do create doorways between the 3 condos on each level to make one row open, lay out so they can roam around. Also, we went to the auto supply store and bought the large rectangular oil drip pans so that the row above didn't drop into the food trays on the one below. That makes sense. And David says, Chris, do you ever use a feather plucker on your quail? Have not. Never tried it on quail. Never used a feather plucker, period. I hand pluck chickens too. So, but yeah, with that, I'm going to have to wrap it up, guys. We're running out of time. We're out of time. We're past time. I spent 3 minutes past the top of the hour. Oh my goodness. No, it's okay. Always a great time to hang out with you guys. Thank you guys all for joining me tonight. I appreciate that. And we'll see you guys next week. I don't see any reasons why I won't be here next week. So until then, have a great weekend. And as always, God bless.